Probably the easiest veggie to grow from the grocery store are green onions. They root and grow readily in water and introduce the home gardener into a whole world of regrowing vegetative vegetation. As amazing as that is, there's still some debate as to how far down that stem you can actually cut and still regrow that scallion. I gotta say, I'm kind of curious myself, so let's find out. First up, we need to get some green onion stalks. You can simply buy yours at the store to follow along in this experiment, but fortunately for us, we have several patches around the house. This particular patch was planted ages ago from just 2 stalks. I need the bed for something else, so let's dig them out. We can't simply pull them out of the ground from that stem. They'll have to be carefully dug out. Easy enough though. As you dig around the stems, you'll feel them get looser and looser until they just pop right out. Do take your time. It's not worth chopping a stem in half just to save a minute. Multiple stems can be easily pulled apart. And then we simply place them in our tray with a wet covering over top to prevent those roots from drying out. As you move along the bed, it gets easier and easier to pull these guys out as more and more of that soil gets loosened up around them. The stems are tough, but it's always easy to accidentally cleave one or cut it in half with a small shovel like this, so do be careful. Pulling the multiple stems apart shouldn't give you much trouble. This soil is still good, so I try to divide and shake off the roots inside the bed. It'll be nice to have this bed back to plant some new stuff in, but I do have to admit, I'm kind of sad to see the green onions go. With all the stems out and separated, we can now take them inside for cleaning. For cleaning, we can use an X-Acto knife or we can use scissors. Here, I'm probably just going to use the scissors. Having all the shoots as separate individual stems makes this 10 times easier. So, much like we did before, we want to harvest all the wonderful green shoots to eat later. To do this, I simply cut right above where that green meets the white on the stem. This usually ends up being around 4 inches of stem in total. Just make your cuts clean and we'll get through this super fast. And while we're at it, we'll just clean up these roots as well. Pretty easy stuff, although a sharper pair of scissors would have been greatly appreciated. Working our way through, we ended up with 13 usable stems for the experiment. Not too bad. Now, I further clean the stems as I always do for green onions. If the outer layer or layers are starting to degrade or peel on their own, I always take them off so that they don't spoil the water. Don't go too crazy with them. You will know when that outer layer is ready to come off or not. Unfortunately, towards the end, I got a little overzealous, and when peeling away a dead layer, it actually also popped off the rooted end. Unreal. I've never had that happen before. I'm going to still stick it in water anyway, but either way, we're probably down to 12 stems now for this experiment. Our third step is to finally cut the green onion stalks down to the lengths that we want to experiment with. We have 12 stems. Let's do 4 lengths with 3 samples in each. Because of the varying lengths of the stems, we're also going to need varying depths of water. Our first measured cut is going to be for 2 inches. These 3 stems will be known as our control group. We know green onions readily grow from this size cut, so we can use their growth and response as an accurate measuring benchmark. If I was doing a batch of green onions normally, this is the exact height that I'd be cutting them at. Easy stuff, and they all fit in the jar nicely. Next up, let's half that length and cut these next guys at 1 inch from the rooted end. I think these guys will still grow, but it really feels short, and it feels like we're starting to push our luck. Also, they're getting harder to stand up in the water as well. That could be a problem. Now, we're breaking all the rules. We've halved that length again, and we're cutting these guys down to within half an inch of their root cap. I gotta be careful here not to slice my fingertips. Honestly, it's funny to think of these little buttons actually doing anything and actually sprouting. The last cut almost seems ceremonious at this point. At a 1/4 inch from the rooted end, these guys don't even really resemble a green onion shoot anymore. I hope that they somehow sprout, but really, how could they possibly? Still, we have to try, and it will be valuable information to know just how far down the stalk we can cut and still have the stem regrow itself. All 4 lengths are all set up in their water? It should be interesting to see how they progress. The little ones not standing straight up is worrisome at best. I'm going to have to try something and write them up somehow. After 72 hours, as expected, the 2-inch cuts already have green stems regrowing. This is normally what we see with green onion cuttings, so being the control group, this is a good sign. That one shoot where the root cap popped right off has even sent out a new green stem, although there's no signs of new roots at this time. Amazingly, even the 1/2-inch cuts, the second smallest ones that we did, even seem to be sprouting. I did not expect that. After 9 days since we started this experiment, things are progressing nicely. The 2-inch and 1-inch cuts are growing fantastic. Big green stems and an explosion of new roots out the bottom. There's not much difference between the 1-inch and the 2-inch ones, with the largest discrepancy probably being the amount and the size of new roots. The 1/2-inch cuts are also still growing, so that's great to see. But what about those tiny 1/4-inch stubs we cut? Did they even have a chance? Well, check it out. Unreal. They were somehow still able to generate a new stem from basically nothing. I'm stunned. This is so cool. So let's plant these guys up, as they can only live in water for so long. Using a quality organic seeding mixture, I want to see if these small cuttings will truly root and grow into new green onion plants. I fill my trays to the top, and then I compress those cells a little bit, and then top it off level again with that same mix. You really want to use a light quality seeding mixture for this, usually based in peat or cocoa fiber. Before planting though, because these roots are actually delicate and have only ever known water, we gotta make sure that our soil is good and wet to avoid the extreme transplant shock. So, I simply water them from below and then wait 2 hours for that soil to soak it all in. Fill the water so it reaches up to almost halfway up the cell tray. Warm water really does seem to work the best. To plant, I make appropriate size holes in the center of each cell. This is easy because we soak that soil and it naturally now holds the integrity. Planting the green onions is simple. Just place them in the hole and then pinch that soil in and around them to complete the process. Here, we're planting the stars of the show, the 1/4-inch pieces. If these ones root and grow, we know we've got it made. It feels odd potting them up because really they're just little stubs, but they are growing and new shoots are forming. I'll round off the trays with the rest of the control group so that we have a benchmark and a base to measure the growth against. Potting these advanced guys in the tiny cells when the white roots have already exploded is admittedly a bit tricky. Let's wait a week and see what happens. Again, unreal. Those stubs are fully growing new stems. If I didn't do this test myself, I honestly would not believe it. I would not believe that these tiny little remnants of a green onion plant could still grow and form a brand new one. This experiment, while mostly for fun, actually taught me 2 things. 1, you can cut down green onions probably to any height and they'll still regrow. They're that resilient. And actually, that's quite important for people who prefer to eat the white part of the plant over the green stems. And the second thing this experiment taught me, there is definitely an optimum height to be cutting these guys down to for replanting. First up, they need to be cut in such a way that they can actually stand up straight in the water so that they can avoid rotting. But they also seem to regrow exponentially faster when they're cut between the 1-inch and the 2-inch mark. This is good to know. Again, green onions seem to be about the easiest veggie to regrow from itself, and if you've never tried it before, I suggest you do. Kids really love it, and they seem to be amazed at when those new roots pop out. And hey, it's nice to never have to buy these things again at the grocery store. Oh yeah, hey, you may have been wondering, what about that shoot where the root end popped off? Did it even survive? Well, it did more than that. It was actually a bit neglected, and I even forgot about it for around a week during this experiment. But, sure enough, new white roots popped out of the bottom, and it's growing into a perfectly new green onion plant. Amazing. It just goes to show you, any way you slice these guys, literally, they still want to grow for you. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. If you're getting value in this and the other series that I'm doing on YouTube, hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons if you'd be so kind, and I'll see you in the next video.